everyone. You guys know me. My name is Tamara. This is my YouTube channel. It's called My Journey to Habituation. I started this channel about a year ago, thinking that it would be cathartic for me, some kind of therapy. And I never thought a year later that I would have as many followers as I do. It may not be a lot to other people, but to me, it's a lot. And I really appreciate everybody that follows me and watches my videos. When I started, I was on YouTube looking for people to watch, looking for people to help me, people that had a different point of view. And one of the first people that I fell in love with was this gentleman right near here. His name is Julian Cowan Hill. He also has his own YouTube channel. He talks a lot about tinnitus and how we need to stop this narrative that tinnitus is something that we have to live with for the rest of our lives. I definitely know now that it's not. So I just want to say to you, Julian, thank you so much for being here and doing this with me and for me. I just want to help as many people as I can. And I think that you're the perfect person to kind of share your voice, share your experience and your story so it can resonate with all of the people out there that are suffering. So I would love
an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And it's very rewarding helping people get better.
I would love if you could share a little bit of your personal story with tinnitus and how it started, how it ended, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, well, my story started when I was 16 and I was at school. I was trying to do some work and I suddenly heard this noise appear and I got up and tried to turn off. I thought it was a radio and I was walking around the house at my school thinking one of the guys had left a radio on and I couldn't find anything. So I went into the kitchen and thought it was a gas ring that was making a shh sound, but I couldn't find anything. So I just thought that's a bit weird, got back to doing my work. And it took me quite a long time to realize that the ring was coming from my own head. And I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, this is inside me, this ringing sound. It was a very high pitched, fine tone. And I went to the school doctor and he said, listen, it's just one of those things, it'll probably go away all by itself. And which is what the best response I had from a medical practitioner. Um, it didn't really go away completely, but it kind of calmed down having heard that message. But as the years went by, I went through a very stressful time with my family during my teenage years, and my tinnitus has gradually got worse and worse. And after, a good 10, 15 years, it was really significant. And it was like in my awareness most of the time. And every time I went to see somebody, they said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Just learn to live with it. There's nothing much you can do about it." And I can remember when I lived in Italy, the doctor in Bologna said, "Listen, just eat really good spaghetti with really extra virgin olive oil." And I thought, okay. Anyway, by the time I was 30, it was really bad. And it got to the stage where it was deafening and I became desperate. I couldn't actually work because I was a wine guide and I had to receive messages on my answer phone and I couldn't hear the answer phone ringing. And I kept on going back and seeing messages there that were really urgent that I'd missed. And I realized that the sound in my ears was louder than the phone ringing. It kind of drowned out everything and I ended up losing my job. I couldn't sleep. Had to give up my flat. I ended up going back to my mother's house, a complete mess. And it was dreadful. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything. Um, and I organized to see an ear, nose, and throat specialist. It took me ages to set it up and then had to wait months for the appointment. And I went in. He said, "Oh, you're moderately to severely deaf. Here's let's get some hearing aids and all the best to you. I said, wait a minute, what about my tinnitus? And he said, oh, there's nothing you can do about it. You're just going to have to learn to live with it. Bye. And I walked out of there and I got into my car. It was in Guildford in south of England. And I just felt myself going into this dark depression. I became depressed. And for the next couple of months, I just felt completely dark and heavy, trapped. I felt like I would just have to live with this monstrous sound in my head for the rest of my life. And it was really disturbing. Um, and, it was definitely the hardest couple of months of my life. And a friend of my mother came round and said, listen, why don't you try cranial work? This guy near my house gave me a session that was amazing. I felt really relaxed. And I said, oh, I'll just try anything. And I went along and saw a therapist. Heard the sound change pitch. I felt like I was a transistor radio and he was changing the station. And I was really shocked. And I said, gosh, how on earth are you doing that? That's really weird. And anyway,
That was
carried
from
on.
Cranial. That was from doing Cranial.
Yeah, it was a cranial contact. I can remember exactly. Had one hand here and one hand here, and it was extraordinary. And I felt my body releasing and settling, and I felt myself just going, just sort of dropping into the couch. And at the end of it, I got up and I felt incredibly relaxed, and my tinnitus had changed pitch, and it
Wow.
was kind of floating around a bit. It sounded a little bit quieter, and I was just completely shocked because it was very, very locked in. I was totally stuck for the
Yeah.
last few years. And so I went back the following week. For the next few days after that session, I kept on bursting into tears, kept on laughing. I felt very sort of like opened up and released. And I went back once a week for a few weeks, and my tinnitus started to change. And I was very lucky to have an immediate response with that. And so I was at a loose end. I was unemployed. I didn't know what to do next. And I found out that there was a craniosacral therapy taster week. Um, and I went along to do this weekend, learning how to be a therapist. And I don't know why, but I was just really sensitive from the start. The first time in the first session I put my hands on, it's like, oh my God. Wow. And I could feel all this stuff happening, and it really blew me away. I spent the whole year of training just going, wow. I
Yeah.
never knew all this stuff was going on inside a person's body. And over the course of the year, I signed up the weekend was a great success. So I signed up for the year's training, the foundation year. And we all have to work on each other like guinea pigs. And over the course of the year, my tinnitus started shifting and coming down. And the following summer, one morning, I woke up in silence.
Wow.
And after 20 years of maddening sound, I mean, the last 4 years, it was dreadful. It was really, really bad. To have silence was just like a miracle. But I had that sort of eureka moment. It was in my mother's house. I ran to the bottom of the garden. I had tears in my eyes. I said, I knew it. I knew it was possible. I knew deep down it was possible to get better. I thought, right, if I can get better, then I can help others get better. I'm going to do my best to help others. And I set up a practice. I was still studying, and I worked in a little room in my mother's garden, and I was just busy from the first day. People came, and 24 years later, I'm still busy and I'm still running this practice. And I've been helping tinnitus people ever since. And along the way, I started really learning about tinnitus. We had to study anatomy and physiology and how the nervous system works. And I started to piece together the bits of the puzzle. And after a while, I thought, gosh, this just feels like a really important learning, something the pennies dropped. I just realized something here. And I just decided to put it on YouTube. And every time I had a realization, I just thought, well, I'll put this on YouTube. I'm sure this will help others. If this helps me, it'll help other people. And I started putting out videos. Once you've learned how to do it, it's quite easy to upload a video. And 200 videos later, the message has really got out there,
Yeah.
explaining how tinnitus is intimately linked with that sort of fight or flight response that turns the sensitivity up. And it's all about safety, really having a direct experience of feeling deeply safe inside your body. And then the alarm bells can stop ringing. That hypervigilant, hypersensitive sensory network can switch off. And and the people have started watching the videos, and literally every day I get email from people saying, I started watching your videos and actually it makes a lot of sense to me, and I started following your advice, and actually my tinnitus is much better. Sometimes there are ups and downs with tinnitus, and it can be a process, a journey of it coming down. But I get regularly contacted saying I was going to give up my jazz career, or I was going to, I just really was in a dark place. And thanks to you, I've now got my life back and I'm much, much better. And, you know, I often get messages of get people getting back to silence. So, habituation, is definitely a massive improvement, getting used to it. And, it's no longer center stage. I can focus on other things. But the sound actually coming down is something else.
Yeah.
And it's been a fascinating journey of helping people get better. And the mindset, the nervous system, there are very specific things that can help us get better.
Yeah. I think for me, what I struggle a lot with is that transition period. So I've had tinnitus for about 2.5 years. And in the beginning, it was catastrophic. I would say 9 out of 10 for a very, very long time. And I've been pretty open about all the things that I've done and tried, which has pretty much been everything. And it has come down. I would say on average, I'm sitting at around a 5 on any given day out of 10, just to give people context. But what I find difficult is I feel like I put so much work in. I do my meditation, I do my nervous system exercises, I go to body based, massage or cranial massage or whatever. And I often feel like I'm not getting out of it what I'm putting in. And that's the hard part, is the holding on while you're waiting for everything to work, while you're waiting for your nervous system to calm down and settle. Those in between moments that you kind of have to constantly be talking to yourself and saying, you just got to keep focused. You have to be consistent. You have to
Mm,
continue doing the things that work while you're still experiencing what's bringing you so much grief or angst
mm,
or anxiety. That's the part that I find most difficult. But in those in between moments, what can I do? What can other people do to kind of to help yourself just stop at the edge of the cliff and not jump off, because those are really moments that are difficult.
mm. Sure. I think having a clear psychological understanding, a clear understanding of how the nervous system works, the fight or flight response definitely is a big volume control button in tinnitus. Many people will have experienced this when we get into a panic. Oh my God, I can't get out of this, help. Then somebody says you're going to have this for the rest of your life, like they're casting an evil spell on you by saying that. And then we can feel trapped, and that horrible trapped feeling floods us with even more adrenaline, which puts the tinnitus right up there. So a lot
Yeah.
of people experience tinnitus flaring up when we get really freaked out. Understanding that tinnitus is like a healthometer, and finding things that help us switch off and go from to um,
Right.
really matters. It really getting that, understanding that, and then building up a support network of people who can help you achieve that, then that really opens up the pathway forward to making progress. So calming the nervous system down, getting your support network set up, and doing your having your therapies to calm the nervous system down, and practices to learn to calm your own system down. That's a huge help. As the tinnitus comes down to a more manageable level, then the mindset can shift, and gosh, it was a 9 out of 10, and now actually it's a 5. It's definitely better than it was last year.
Yeah.
I know this can get better. It can be painfully slow sometimes. It's like,
Yeah.
dealing with frustration and feeling stuck, and when is this thing going to go? That's part of being a therapist, is helping people stay on track, helping them make sure they're doing all the things that they can do to get better, and reassuring them that they can get better. That's something I can do until the cows come home.
Yeah.
Um, and then the mindset, having a clear, positive mindset, that instead of focusing on this, you're actively focusing on one of my favorite techniques, the boat mast, for example, feeling your center. Instead of listening and thinking, you change channel into feeling your spine,
Yeah.
and you learn how to feel that and anchor that down. Most people can relate to a spine. They know they've got a spine. You can move it and feel it. And if you develop your awareness of your spine and midline, this gets stronger and clearer. And with practice, you become more grounded. That means you literally hang out feeling your spine. I'm sitting here talking to you, and at the same time as talking to you, I can feel my spine. It's here anyway. When I had bad tinnitus, I wasn't connected to my body. I was in my head. I was up and out, constantly thinking. I was out there somewhere. So if I walk down a street and at the end of the road you say, "What do you remember of the street?" I probably wouldn't be able to tell you very much. Whereas these days, I'd say, "Oh gosh, yeah, I remember walking along, there was a step and it went down a bit. And then I turned around and I looked up an alleyway." I'm much more present now, and that helps your nervous system feel safer and more settled. So there's very real, very solid things you can do to ease down. But with being stuck, I think with tinnitus, having a good therapist who's positive, who has got better himself or herself, themselves, you know, it's really important to have somebody positive with understanding who can guide you and help you get there.
Yeah. I mean, when I went on the retreat in May, so you and a couple other tinnitus specialists held a retreat in Sardinia, Italy in May of this year, October of last year. When I went to the retreat, that was the first time in the moment I felt like there was actually hope for me to get better. I think I said it a lot before, but I don't know that I really believed it. But being at the retreat, being with other people who knew exactly what I was going through. Being with you and Paula and Michael, who all have had tinnitus, who have all overcome tinnitus, it puts you in a different frame of mind. So being around constant support, doing nervous system exercises, focusing on rest and relax, it was the first week in the last 2.5 years that it felt manageable. The
Wow.
tinnitus itself didn't really change, but I think the way that I was responding to it changed. So that interaction between the tinnitus and how I feel about it, when that changed, I thought, holy smokes, this is actually possible. It was 7 days of um, not kind of just sitting around stewing in it. And I think for the people who are watching and listening, when you were talking about the boat mast and centering and paying attention to your spine, it is about not having this external radar and constantly, like, you know, being afraid of sound and concentrating on your tinnitus, but focusing on your spine, it helps you to bring everything inward instead of outward. And when you can concentrate on calm and relax and being inside of yourself and focusing on calming your nervous system, it really is in the long run going to be the thing that tells your tinnitus, hey, wait a minute. I don't think she's afraid of you anymore. She's not talking about you all the time. She's not listening out for you all the time. She's not afraid. And then your body and the tinnitus will eventually, get lower and lower and lower and lower. So for
Yeah.
me, that was like a huge moment, just realizing that it was actually possible for it to completely go
Yeah.
away.
It really helps having people around you who have got better, who understand it. Um, on the retreat, it's a nice combination of Michael, he's an ENT, an audiologist, he's got a very solid medical background, knows
Yeah.
so much about tinnitus, he's got to be one of the best therapists in the world. And for him to give the medical insight is really useful. And then Paula and I are body-based people. I'm a psychotherapist. We've got a lot of experience of getting better. So that's comforting and reassuring and helpful. The big win comes when we literally become more grounded. So thinking and believing and hoping is a good start.
Hmm.
That can be very, very helpful. People find my videos. Oh gosh, that makes sense. Oof. And then the tinnitus can actually come down when you receive really positive news and you feel this sense of, oh wow, there is a way out of this. And the reassurance brings your adrenaline level down, and
Yeah.
that in turn gets the tinnitus to quieten down, which is hugely helpful. And that can be a real eureka moment for people when they suddenly realize actually this isn't as thick fix as I thought it was. But the real, this is my particular learning, is that when you become more grounded, so you all the body work, all the yoga, tai chi, breathing practices, boat mask meditation, this develops your awareness and that takes root more and more. So you become much more body based. So instead of living up here in a little bubble of intensity in thinking and listening, your whole experience expands to include all of you down to your toes and down to the base of your spine. So you're a much bigger bubble of awareness. And
Yeah.
tinnitus is a small fish in this big bubble. It's much easier to distract your attention away from this if you can really feel the rest of you much more
Yeah.
clearly. So distraction helps. And being grounded actually calms the fight or flight response. The coming out of freeze response, which is like overwhelm, rabbit in headlights, ooh, and fight or flight, where you're very reactive and a bit fiery, anything can trigger you. Um, by calming and getting really deeply in touch with the body, you find safety inside you. This is a real thing. You can feel your body just hanging out here all the time. So it's quite a big shift. Instead of having a numbed out thing down there which you can't connect with, and you're living in racing thoughts and senses going bananas, there's a calm, fleshed out experience of a physical body that you're inside, and it feels calmer and more comfortable and more settled. So the body-based aspect of the work is really, really helpful. When you get the body to feel safe and calm with body practices, the body then gets the head to switch off.
Yeah, I haven't really posted much since I've been home from Italy. And the reason is because I wanted to take everything that I learned in Italy, all of the practices, all of the calming exercises, and really find a way to weave it into my life. I wanted to create a routine for myself and kind of be consistent and stay focused. And one of the things on the retreat that was really, really difficult for me, especially coming back home, was letting go of sound therapy. I've used it for, I think, almost 2 years at that point, and it kind of became like a crutch for me. Anytime my tinnitus was overbearing, or I felt anxious, or I just couldn't take it, I would throw the sound therapy in and be like, okay, it takes the edge off. And I just would like for you to explain a little bit why you told me not to use it anymore. Why was it important for me to let the sound therapy go?
Okay, so sound enrichment, sound therapy is really helpful, especially at the beginning. It's very doable. You can have maskers, or you can listen to sounds in your room. You can have Tinnitus, the thing that puts sound out into the ambient sound around on your neck. Um, things like this can be really comforting because you're managing your auditory environment, and you're also managing your response to sound. And so the idea is that gradually you bring the background sounds down, and your subconscious starts to filter out the tinnitus more and more. Your brain becomes more and more able to filter out the boring background brain buzz. So this is very helpful. At some stage, I think that's particularly helpful on the way down to habituation. To make a good recovery, getting down to silence or near silence, so like a 0.5 out of 10, you need to leave your ears alone. So, you know, what we want is to be focusing on other things, thinking about other things. We need to be calm and relaxed and comfortable, get our adrenaline levels back down to a manageable level, feel safe, and that brings the hypersensitivity down. And we need to stop fiddling with our ears and constantly, oh, how is this? And how's that? And so what happens when I go into my bedroom? Oh, now in the kitchen. This keeps us very over focused on hearing, and that heightens the sensitivity. So maybe the best thing would be, once you've got down to a manageable level, is to wean yourself off sound enrichment practices onto maybe body-based practices. And we need to just do this very gently. We always need to stay within our comfort zone. We don't want to push too much. So if you've had a slightly negative response to giving up sound enrichment, just you can ease back into it, but you're just gently wanting to build up your body-based resources so that you can shift the focus onto them. So it's important, if you're using that as a crutch, great. Just ease back very, very gently. I think if you go a bit cold turkey, it can be a bit jarring. And I can, excuse me, I can remember years of walking into quiet rooms and thinking, oh, the quiet was really threatening.
Yeah.
Um, but these days I can stand in a quiet room and feel really fine and have no noise. And so I recognize that we have to make these changes very gradually and in a way that is suitable for our own nervous system. Everybody's pace, everybody's speed of getting better is different. There are different life events, we have different issues, and we always need to stay within our comfort zone and not push too much.
Yeah. I I almost got emotional when you said you were standing in a quiet room and you hear nothing. I'm like, I can't wait for that moment for myself
I
when I
really
can,
wish I could
when
go, "Bing." I
I
really
know
wish I could go to do that immediately, but it can happen. It does happen.
it will happen. I believe it. And I know there are difficult times, but I do wholeheartedly believe that I'm going to get better. Um, Also in Italy, you know, we had a couple of one-on-one sessions with each of the specialists. And when I had my session with Michael, Dr. Golenhofen, he confirmed what I think I already knew, that my tinnitus was body-based, somatic. Um, there are different types of tinnitus, which I didn't really understand before. Uh, is it possible, no matter how you got your tinnitus, no matter how long you've had your tinnitus, is it possible for anybody with any kind of tinnitus to achieve silence?
Yes, it is. Every kind of tinnitus can get better. I was so delighted when Michael said this on the first retreat. It was just like music to my ears because I've worked with lots of different kinds of tinnitus. So you can have tinnitus resulting from medication or vaccinations. That's sort of toxic tinnitus. You can have ear-based tinnitus, so damage to the cochlea, or you can have loud noise exposure that shatters the cells, etc. You can have central nervous system stress-related tinnitus. I've worked with so many different kinds of people, soldiers next to bombs or rock stars playing far too loud music on stage. And it can take a while, but working with all these different kinds of tinnitus from hard-earned experience, it can get better.
Yeah,
Um, so there's slightly different approaches with different kinds of tinnitus. But Michael really validated my work in the retreat. He said that the boat mast meditation, which is just a way of centering yourself and anchoring yourself. If you go to the Quieten app, it's in the first things first section there. He said he said this was the holy grail of tinnitus practices because it's really applicable to any kind of tinnitus, and these practices will help. Um,
yeah,
if you have an acute toothache or a problem with your jaw joint, TMJ, or you have a neck issue, and that's creating irritability in your central nervous system, everything's connected in the body, especially the upper body. Just moving your jaw can change the sound of tinnitus. You need to get the big things settled in order for the tinnitus to calm down. So, Michael's very blunt. You have a tooth problem. You must get this fixed before you can think of your tinnitus settling. Bang. Um,
yeah,
and I think that's very useful. And my approach to helping tinnitus can help things settle gradually or steadily, and sometimes quite quickly. It really, in a way, I was very lucky. I had a massive response to cranial work, and that's enough to keep me going. Um, I have clients who come for a cranial session, and their tinnitus goes quiet in every session. I have some clients who come, and in 2 or 3 sessions, their tinnitus switches off.
please.
I have other clients who come for sessions and the intensity backs off and it creeps down a little bit. And we work for months, 6 months to a year, and it just gradually comes down slowly. Um, I can't really predict how quickly it's going to be. When people say how long, it's the most common question. How long is it going to take for me to get better? When I work with people, I always give them numbers out of 10, so I can look over the weeks and see, came in at a 6, went away with a 3. It's 6, 3, 5, 3, 4, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1. You see the numbers slowly coming down, and that can give you a more predictable view of how quickly people are going to get better.
Yeah, I don't like that numbering system. I think it can be dangerous for somebody with tinnitus. For me, when I used to work with treble health in the very beginning, and it was super helpful for me when my tinnitus was like in the acute stage. It definitely helped bring everything down. But that labeling of like, oh, the average is 12 to 18 months, that can be very
Yeah.
dangerous because
Mm.
if you hit that, like what happened for me, I hit that 18-month mark and I went into a panic
Mhm.
because I
Yeah.
was like, well, somebody told me it was 12 to 18 months. I'm at 18 months and I'm still at a 5. So what does that mean? Am I
Yeah.
that one person whose tinnitus is not going to go away? Like I
Yeah.
went into a depression, I went into a panic.
Yeah.
I just thought this is never going to work for me. So as a patient, you always want to ask, how long is it going to take? Because you want to look forward to something. But I think that it can be more detrimental
Yeah. And
because
yet, I think if you're talking about time spans, I completely get it. And there's a sort of a sneaky side of me wanting to say, well, it's halved in 2 years. So I know it sounds like a long time, but it's gone from 9 to 5 in 2 years. You're very likely to go from 5 to 1 in another 2 years. But if you
right.
have help and support and do practices, then that's hopefully going to speed up a lot. But I
Yeah.
must say that asking people, when I see people, I say, what kind of a week have you had? And people will often say, basically it's been a 3 for most of the time, but it dropped down to a 1. And it's very quick I think it's good to notice when it gets better. I had somebody just now who had his first 0. And when
Oh
you
man.
have your first 0, that's an important landmark. So I said to this guy, like I say regularly to people, so you now know it can switch off. It is
Yeah.
not anything damaged or broken. Now your nervous system's come down to a low level of reactivity, so the filters can filter out all that boring background brain buzz, and you hear silence. And I say to people, you've heard this, haven't you? You said 0. You really mean 0, don't you? In a quiet room, you heard nothing. Go, yes. And I write 0 out of 10, and I see, remember this.
Wow.
Cannot pretend this didn't happen. And I kind of cemented in. I think those numbers can be really useful.
Yeah. Um, I just what do you think it is about cranial that is so important
Mm.
to tinnitus and the nervous system?
Yeah, cranial people, we are osteopathic in a way. We work with the structures of the body, but we also work with the energies of the body. And when you do this work for thousands and thousands of hours, like I've done it for since 1999. I put my hands on someone's head and I can feel the buzzy vibrational charge and pulsating. I can feel how the body's going like this, or I can feel the all the qualities of the various different structures in the head. It's amazing how much you can feel. And after a couple of minutes, I'm arrogant enough to say that I can feel the tinnitus. Sometimes I can feel a palpable sense of pulsating or vibrations. And I hang out with that for 10 to 15 minutes in every session with tinnitus people. So I do a lot of work here. And I think this is really important because often if you hang out with it, you hang out with it, you hang out with it, cranial people, we look for the stillness, the underlying stillness, and we hang out. It's like the nice deep tidal stillness, and we hang out with the waves of the pulsing, and gradually that eases down. And time after time after time, people say when that pulsing and vibration quietens down, people either say, oh, gosh, it's gone quiet, oh, or the intensity's gone, or my tinnitus has changed. What's funny, it was here, and now it's gone, sounds like it's next door. So I've had enough clinical experience of hanging out with this to hear people's feedback over the years. And
Yeah.
so I'm now really confident. I know what I feel, and I have literally decades of experience of doing this.
Yeah.
And as a therapist, learning to stay with an experience and focus on it for 15 minutes. It doesn't sound like much, but actually in the moment, it's a long time. That's what really makes it special. I think all body work is good for bringing the whole system into alignment. Acupuncture, um, hypnotherapy, that there's so many things that can help tinnitus. And with cranial work, just tuning in and feeling the buzzy charge and waiting for that to dissipate, that's something that helps so much.
Approximately, just an approximate number, how many people do you think you've helped achieve silence?
I I have emails from people saying, "Hi, I started watching your videos 3 years ago. I just wanted to say a big thank you because I'm now back to silence." I get emails like this quite often, and quite often I collect them and put them on my app.
Yeah, I've read
Um,
them.
I I mean, people say thousands, but I have no evidence of that. But I've worked with quite, a lot of people clinically in my cupboard over there. I've probably got a few thousand um, files. I would say to get back to zero, I'd probably say about 1,000.
That's amazing. That's really cool. What advice would you give to somebody who is, I mean, not, they don't even have to be new to tinnitus. Let's say somebody that's just never done any work, or somebody who's kind of swallowed that narrative that they have to just live with it. What would you say were some things that they could do today to start shifting that?
First of all, to read positive stories of people getting better. It is madness when people say you're going to have this for the rest of your life. I mean, literally, you would not believe how many people say this. In the medical model, they say if you lose hearing, the brain overcompensates and creates tinnitus. End of story. And so a lot of medics will believe that's it, but
Yeah.
it's not the end of the story. Um, it's an overcompensation in the brain, but there are millions of deaf people with no tinnitus, and there are millions of people with perfect hearing who do have tinnitus. So that actually shows you that the model's very see-through. Um,
Mm.
so learn about tinnitus, learn about the fight or flight response, learn about how the sensitivity is very changeable. Your ears can ramp up into radars, listening to anything, or they can switch off and become very focused and they can go into screen save mode. This is a hugely changeable feast. Um, Understanding how it works, learning from people who've got better, reading the positive stories. I think that's possibly the most useful thing. Writing a book about people's positive recoveries, I think is just such a brilliant thing to do. I know you're interested in doing this. Um,
Yeah.
Collecting positive stories from people who've lived through this and made a complete recovery is reassuring. It makes other people think, gosh, I can get better too. And you don't feel alone. You read other people's stories. It's very touching. I have people emailing me saying I was watching a video of yours or I read your book and I burst into tears and I felt such a sense of relief. and actually my tinnitus started to change. So this isn't a miracle.
Yeah.
It's just the fear response coming down. So I think learn how it gets better, how learn from people who have got better is the simple answer to your question.
Yeah. Well, Julian, as somebody who found you online, to meeting you on a beach in Sardinia, Italy, and getting a big hug, to seeing you, to doing this interview with you, um, you have been such an integral part of my tinnitus story. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing your experience, for not gatekeeping and keeping it to yourself, to let people know we have to switch this narrative that tinnitus is forever.
Mm,
It's enough, because
yeah.
it's not forever. And the sad thing is that when you tell people that it's fixable, they really don't believe you,
Mhm,
because they've been fed this narrative for so
mm,
long by doctors, by ENTs, by hospitals, by even at tinnitus centers. I've heard some crazy things people have said to me. So I just want to say thank you so much for, in this space, being a safe space for all of us to come to watch positive stories, to talk about healing, to learn about nervous system exercises. And I really just want to say thank you for just being you, for being this wonderful, happy go lucky, loving, sharing guy. And if any of you out there are interested in talking to Julian or interested in his app, I will post all of that in the link in my bio. You can reach out to him for therapy. You can go on his app. It's called Quieten. It has everything that you need to start your journey to getting better. And I just want to say thank you so much, Julian, for being here. I appreciate you so much. And I am so, so, so grateful to be able to
mm.
call you my friend.
Oh, well, I mean, it's really lovely working with you, and it was great being on a retreat with you, and lovely seeing all the positive connections you made that there with other people. And I just feel really lucky because it's tremendously satisfying and rewarding work helping people get better. So, an absolute pleasure. And thank you for putting your information out there and opening the doors and providing support. It really makes a massive difference.
It really does. Hopefully we can do this again sometime in the future.
Anytime,
Maybe,
anytime.
maybe we can have a regular session. We'll call it, I don't know what we'll call it, but we'll do some questions and answers. And
Sure.
I'll see you.
Anytime. That'll be great.
Thank you so much, Julian. I really appreciate it. Take care.